I'll never forget the night my mother publicly humiliated me at her annual charity gala in front of hundreds of her esteemed guests, simply because I was a waitress. The sound of clinking glasses and polite laughter still echoes in my mind, a stark contrast to the searing embarrassment I felt as she turned me away at the door. It was October 12th, a night that would change everything. My name is Emily, I'm 25, and I've always felt like I lived in the shadow of my mother's expectations. She's a woman of high society, with a penchant for designer clothes and a disdain for anything she considers beneath her. I, on the other hand, have always been drawn to the simplicity and honesty of working in the service industry. But to her, being a waitress was a failure, a reflection of my inability to succeed in a real career. Growing up, I remember the smell of freshly baked cookies wafting from our kitchen, the sound of my mother's voice as she critiqued my every move. She always praised my siblings for their accomplishments, no matter how small, while my efforts were constantly belittled. I felt like I was living in a constant state of rejection, always trying to prove myself to her, but never quite measuring up. The feeling of being undervalued and unappreciated lingered long after I left home, a constant reminder of my place in her eyes. The day of the gala, I woke up feeling a mix of emotions, anxiety, anticipation, and a hint of rebellion. I had decided to attend, despite my mother's disapproval, as a way of proving to myself that I was worthy of respect, regardless of my profession. As I got ready, I felt a sense of determination wash over me. I was going to show my mother, and everyone else, that being a waitress didn't define my worth. But as I arrived at the gala, I was met with a stern face and a cold tone. "You're not welcome here, Emily," my mother said, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're a waitress. This is a night for respectable people." I remember feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. The air seemed to leave my lungs, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. But as I looked around at the sea of faces, I saw something that gave me the strength to stand up for myself. I saw my husband, standing across the room, his eyes locked on mine with a mixture of anger and pride. He's a billionaire CEO, a man who has built his empire from the ground up, and he doesn't care about my mother's opinions or her social status. He cares about me, and he was there to support me no matter what. I decided then and there that I was going to prove my worth, not just to my mother, but to myself. I started by working harder than ever, pouring my heart and soul into my job. I kept a journal of my progress, documenting every success, every tip, and every compliment from a customer. I had a plan, which I called the turnaround, and it was going to change everything. I was going to show my mother and everyone else that being a waitress wasn't something to be ashamed of. It was a profession that required skill, dedication, and hard work. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, I started to see the results of my labor. I was making more money, getting better tips, and receiving recognition from my employers. I even started to save up, with a goal of opening my own restaurant one day. My husband was my rock, supporting me every step of the way. He'd often come to the restaurant, sitting in the back and watching me work with a pride that made my heart swell. On February 10th, I received a $1,000 tip from a customer, a testament to my hard work and dedication. It was a moment of validation, a reminder that I was on the right path. But the real turning point came when my mother received an invitation to a business dinner where I was being honored for my contributions to the culinary industry. She was hesitant at first, but eventually she agreed to come. As we sat down at the table, I could feel her eyes on me, a mix of surprise and pride. The dinner was a success, with speeches and awards that highlighted my achievements. My mother was forced to confront her own biases, to see me in a new light. It was a moment of reckoning, a moment of truth. As we left the dinner, my mother turned to me and said, "I'm sorry, Emily. I was wrong about you. You're an amazing woman, and I'm proud of you." It was a moment of healing, a moment of closure. I realized that I had been seeking her approval for far too long, and that it was time for me to forge my own path. I was no longer the timid, uncertain girl I once was. I was a strong, capable woman with a clear sense of purpose and direction. The night of the gala, a year later, was a different story altogether. My mother invited me as a guest of honor, and as I walked into the room, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. I was no longer just a waitress. I was a successful businesswoman with a restaurant of my own and a reputation for excellence. My husband was by my side, beaming with pride as we mingled with the guests. It was a night of celebration, a night of triumph. I had proven myself not just to my mother, but to myself. I had found my worth, my value, and my place in the world. As I look back on that journey, I realize that it was never about my mother's approval or her social status. It was about me and my own sense of self-worth. It was about finding my voice, my passion, and my purpose. I learned that true strength comes from within, and that the only person you need to prove yourself to is you. If you're struggling to find your place in the world, remember that you're not alone. Keep pushing forward, keep striving for greatness, and never give up on your dreams.